We're about to hear from our phenomenal panel. I am but a humble journalist who's researched this stuff. We're about to hear from the real deal, the experts, and drill down. Please have a think about what questions you'd like to ask on Slido, because we'll ask them throughout the conversation. It's a rare opportunity to pick these people's massive brains. I'm very excited. All right, first of all, I'm going to invite, actually online, we have someone joining online. The founder of Magpie Travel, a California-based company that provides a way to manage information and content for the tourism and travel industry. Please welcome, hopefully we can get him up online, Christian Watts. Hello, Christian.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us. I'll invite the other panellists up and then I'll get going. Incidentally, Magpie Travel, very clever, spelled Magpie AI. I love a quirky name. Next is a business consultant with lots of experience in helping organisations change and adapt for the future, particularly in the space of artificial intelligence. Please welcome Dr. Elissa Farrow. Elissa, thanks so much for joining us. And Dr. Farrow's just come from another event, so we are really grateful for her time. You're on the run today. Finally, we have a principal scientist in strategy and foresight from CSIRO. His work is often future-focused on how to get more science and tech applied in industry. Please welcome Dr. Stefan Hajkowicz. And I quoted Stefan in my book, another shameless plug. All right, let's start by finding out a little bit more about how new technology is being adopted by the tourism industry, how hard it is to predict the future, because we're all sitting up here as crystal ball gazers, okay? Educated crystal ball gazers, but the future is an unknown. Before we get into that, though, I'd like to hear from each of you your definition. What is artificial intelligence? Stefan, I'll start with you.
All right, so I think the first important thing is there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. We haven't invented it yet. It's a bit of an incorrect name. I'd call it maths and stats, but still incredibly powerful and incredibly impactful in what it's going to do. Artificial intelligence is maths and stats that is capable of doing a really good job at predicting the next thing or generating something based on a huge amount of information. And that alone is quite transformative. But I think if you really were to look at it, I'm not sure that we have invented yet artificial intelligence.
I love that. I knew this would be controversial. Elissa, what's your definition?
A little similar to that. Hi, hello, everyone. For me, artificial intelligence is a tool. It's a tool that has been created to replicate some of the processes, functions, features of humans. And I think at the moment, the concept of sentient AI, which means that they are smarter than humans in all areas, doesn't exist. But I certainly believe that AI, as an area of computer science, has got some pretty exciting features at the moment. So certainly it's smart tech to me.
I'm so glad you said sentience doesn't exist, because it obviously doesn't, but I remember a New York Times writer playing with ChatGPT when it first came out and thought the robot was falling in love with him and imagined that the bot was sentient. So I think there's that tension between humans and technology that we think it's more humanistic than it is. And I did read your roadmap in research for my book. In 2019, CSIRO produced a roadmap on AI. How is this sort of information put together, and what did it say about the tourism industry at that time, 2019?
Yeah, look, we totally didn't see 2023 when we were working in 2019 on artificial intelligence. So I wrote the National Roadmap for Australia on artificial intelligence. It was launched by the federal government in 2019, and I also wrote the ethics framework, which was launched in the same year, which is now a set of principles. Well, two fascinating things is firstly, how those ethics principles we ummed and ahed over, maybe they're so here and now and very relevant to all of us. I think what are voluntary principles will also become mandatory. And then the roadmap. We didn't really foresee how much capability was going to happen. I think a lot of the developers of the large language models, the Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, the ones you know, but a lot of models like that, the human performance benchmark was up here. And within only years, these models were hitting performance benchmarks for language reasoning, for competition mathematics, image classification, image generation, we've been amazed by it. I think it is fair to say you ain't seen nothing yet. A lot more is getting into the R&D pipeline. A lot more capability is coming. We saw the first big gains by putting more and more data into these models, more than we ever had done before. Now, and we also saw the transformer architecture of 2017 come into play. In 2017, some Google researchers published what is now, I think, the most cited paper in science ever. And the paper was titled "Attention is All You Need," and it was a transformer architecture which focuses the machine learning model on the bits of the problem that really matter. And we're able to use that technology, and that's what also made all of these models that we interact with now so amazingly powerful. It really did transform what we could do with machine learning. But those sorts of discoveries are continuing to get put into the R&D pipeline, and it's hard to know sort of what will work and have a big impact into the future. But the next big thing that's about to hit us as we see the next upgrades of these models is an enormous step up in computer processing power. This puts a lot more layers and neural networks into the deep learning models, which means it's going to get better at making predictions of the next thing. And I think we will see substantial improvements. GPT-3 to GPT-4 was significant. I think likewise Claude has taken some really big steps forward. I think we will see more of that. We're moving into the era of foundation models, and yeah, what is interesting to me is I work in foresight similar to you, and I think we just totally did not see the extent of what was happen in terms of tech capability and human use and economic use of these models. So it's such a fast-paced world. I just feel like someone at the centre of it. I feel like I'm drowning in it. I can't keep up with all of the things that are going on. I can't get my head across all of the things that are happening in the world of AI all the time. And also I've learned not to underestimate what it's going to be able to do, but not to overestimate at the same time.
Wise. So much time has passed since 2019. That was the year, Christian, that you started Magpie AI. If your audio's fixed, I'd love to hear from you. How much has the business changed since the ideation back then to what it is now?
Yeah, we started that as a content management platform. We were a single source of truth for product content, and then we distribute that across the travel industry. The biggest thing we didn't have when we started out is we didn't have the ability to write content. So we're great at distributing content, but the number one problem was that tour operators weren't very good at coming in and actually writing it. That's not a service we provided. So if I could have almost imagined the best tool that we could have ever brought into the business, it was ChatGPT in 2022. So from that day onwards, we've been able to create content, and it's really good. It's been really good from day one for creating that content and also translating that content. So now we've got almost perfect product descriptions in the tone of the tour operator. We've got unlimited translations to whatever language they need. So it's really revolutionized our business. That's just one of the tools that we use it for.
So can you hear me? Content creation is so important because social media requires so much more content these days. So if it can be done automatically or autonomously, that's a game changer. Elissa, your PhD focused on the implication of AI on organisational futures. What are these implications? What of those are specific to the tourism industry?
I might ask our AV team to put up my first discussion pack.
How excellent. You're very organised. I like that.
Hopefully.
Aha, it's up there.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Is it up? Yep, excellent. So the first slide that's up there is just to give you a brief introduction to futures and futures thinking. So my doctoral studies explored organisations of the future and the implications of artificial intelligence on leaders, teams, and the adaptation approach in particular. It also delved into the areas of mindset and what sort of mindset was required to help anticipate and move towards the futures. And this first image that's up there is what's called a futures cone that demonstrates for us that there's multiple futures that exist. Our future is not known, it's not unknown, and there's many multiple futures that could happen. Can we go to the next slide, please? What I explored in my research was organisations of the future. I set all my research in 2040, as a good futurist does, try to stretch the planning horizon out a little bit, covered through on a continuum of what organisational operating models would be like in the future. knowing that some of these operating models might exist simultaneously, but in other circumstances in a tourism venture, we might choose to select a certain element. The continuum goes from fully AI, no human involvement, which we might not be at quite yet. The other end of the continuum, focus more on human only. And in a tourism context, we could almost visualise futures where maybe the human-only context could be almost like a VIP experience, as opposed to the AI only might be the budget special. One more slide, please. What's also in existence to prepare for my part of the panel today was just to explore some futures of tourism. What you can see up there on the screen is just some purely scenarioed options of what could be longer term possible futures in various tourism sectors. They range from items to do with personalised experiences, where maybe we are carrying around an app that updates in real time, so our tourist experience updates as real-time information does. We might have robotic concierges, which your exhibit showed in those examples. We might also have examples where perhaps for us, we might have in the future robotic companions, robotic tour guides. We might even have AI as your tourism agent as well, and back office staff. Again, for me, from a futures perspective, all of these possible scenarios come with choice. And for me, the first question I'd like to encourage anyone to ask is, what part of our value proposition as business owners or leaders do we not want to erode with artificial intelligence, even though we possibly could?
Such good advice, and I love the idea of VIP experiences being human to human and personal, and more mainstream, broader experiences being powered by AI. Stefan, what are some of the positives and negatives of AI? I touched on a few earlier, you can dig deeper. And how big do you think it will be in the tourism sector in 5-10 years?
So I think AI is going to be the most significant thing for your tourist company in the next 5 years, and pretty much every company in every career. It is a general purpose technology that's reaching into everywhere. It's at the beginning of the journey. The world's 5 largest companies now are all AI companies. You know, Nvidia is now at about 3 trillion. The world has sort of made up its mind, and this AI thing is significant. It's going to be significant for your companies. It's going to be significant for how people learn about whether to purchase tourist services from you versus someone else. It also will give you an opportunity to change the way you plan and manage your business. In lots of fields, we're seeing generative AI associated with huge productivity uplift, more than we've seen before. We're seeing software engineers do their jobs 53% faster. That's about 110,000 people in Australia who suddenly have got twice as fast at their job. And a lot of them are certainly not telling their boss this, we found out, because they can have the afternoon off instead of working more. But that's management consultants, customer support staff, in wide-ranging organisations, we're seeing this productivity uplift possible. But there's downsides too. And it's not all just the ethical stuff. It's also the complexity of using it. We hear more about the AI successes than we do the fails. I work with companies on AI adoption, about what are all the different AI tools and technologies I can plug into my business and make them work. Getting that question right is hard and complex, and is where often source of failure occurs. Companies are using the wrong AI tools, the wrong data sets, they're not seeing the results from it. So it's a mixed bag when you really look into it. There's a lot of using AI that doesn't lead to productivity uplift for certain reasons. A lot of your AI work is actually really boring stuff. It's data. A lot of it is not about AI, it's about looking at your data, and usually that's the key thing that will make or break an AI application that's special in your industry. We also, let's zoom out to the economy, and we can see that the Treasury has downgraded productivity from around, I think it was about 1.8% per year growth down to 1.2%. The numbers aren't quite correct, something like that. GDP growth has gone down as well. We're telling our kids they're going to have lower rate of income growth than we enjoyed, significantly lower, because productivity is falling. So why, with all of this AI and with all of this digital technology, are we still not seeing productivity uplift? This is called Solov's paradox, that the evidence of productivity uplift is everywhere, other than in the evidence of productivity uplift from computers is everywhere other than in the statistics. We're not seeing national level productivity or wealth generation from it. So first of all, I tell you that, yeah, this is massive for your organisation. It's about productivity uplift. It's about changing your career. All this is very true, and I think it is. But then this adoption quagmire that we have, this is the hard work that comes next. It's not guaranteed that it does this. And there's a lot of complexity. And then I love all the sort of stuff that you showed us of the ethical bits, the ability for AI to be used harmfully, wrongfully, the damage it's doing at the same time. I think a lot of our attention quickly needs to go to the use of AI that feeds to our teenagers what they see in social media, because it's highly addictive. It can also pull them into different areas where they shouldn't necessarily. The AI algorithm doesn't care too much about them or you. It's trying to get clicks, and it's incentivized in different ways. So we have this sort of here and now thing of not the Terminator apocalyptic type of AI concern, but more really pedestrian current level things that we need to be looking at about what AI is doing. Lastly, the competitive stuff. What Uber did to taxis is just starting up. I'm working with companies where we can see really big risks for an overseas tech disruptor to come in and change the way things are done here. Take one example, Canada Post. During the pandemic, it saw e-commerce deliveries go up. It was great for business, but so did another player, Amazon. Amazon Shipping in the US, and about 2 or 3 Chinese tech companies went into Canada, and Canada Post's market share went from 69% down to about 29%. A huge, huge drop, and that's put it into a survival situation. How did they do it? They leveraged AI for customer service chatbots, for network optimization, and to embrace the gig economy. And I think lastly, around the legislation and regulation, I think the voluntary principles I wrote will become legislated in Australia in about 2 years, but that ain't going to be enough. We cannot regulate to safety here. And I think in the next question, I want to pick up sovereign capability issues.
Definitely. Christian, aside from content creation, where do you use AI in your business? What do you find are the positives and the negatives? And what would you advise other tourism business operators?
Yeah, so I'll start with the dramatic. What they interviewed Sam Altman right after ChatGPT came out. Sam Altman's the CEO of OpenAI, and they asked him what he thinks about. And the number one thing he said, and you expected him to sort of talk about the product or pricing or something like that. And first thing he said is, well, capitalism might fail. And he wasn't trying to be funny. He actually thinks that this is where this may lead. So we need to look at different ways of running the economy. So I think in the long term, it's going to revolutionize everything. In the short term, and I think we just spoke about it there, some of these things do take time. You know, when the iPhone came out, it took maybe 5 or 6 years before people were really using Uber and Instagram and some of these other applications. So things take time. The stuff that we use is actually some of the simple stuff, just writing content, translating content, summarizing content. And I think that's a really easy place for most people to start. Anybody can jump onto ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini without any knowledge at all, without any expertise, and just start using it and just ask it questions about your business. Ask the chatbot how to best use the chatbot for running my business. And I think it's just really easy for people to jump in and test it. And there seems to be a gap. I think people are afraid to almost go in and jump in and test these tools out, but they're so accessible today and they're free mostly. There's versions of all the tools that are free. So I think people should just get in there and test it out and see where they can use it for the business. And one of the things people often ask me as far as prompts, they say something like, how would I advertise my tourism business and target German tourists arriving in July between the age of 25 and 40? How would I write a prompt for that? And the answer is, that's your prompt. Whatever question you were going to ask the human, just ask the chatbot. And it comes up with amazing answers.
You've articulated that so well, Christian, because I was saying before you came online that I've, as a 57-year-old woman who considered myself a technophobe for a long time, I now love it. And part of the reason I love it is it's really easy to jump in there and play with it. there's a lot of free apps. It's a very low entry level when it comes to being, adept with technology. And one of the things everyone in this room can do is what's called machine teaching, which is basically getting in there with the chatbots and the image generators and teaching them to be better, to be less bigoted, to be less biased. We've got fantastic questions coming in, so I'm going to start asking them now. Please pop them in on Slido. We've got about 20 minutes left, so make sure you get questions in. I like this one. If there's one thing we could start and stop doing today regarding AI, what should it be, Elissa?
Great question, thank you. Start and stop doing. For me, I would start saying thank you every time I engage with a AI instance, and I do this with ChatGPT all the time, that whenever I utilise it, I always say, thank you very much. Like, I really appreciate that. And partly because if I see AI as almost like a little child, like what sort of role model do we want to be for a little child? Because they're learning from all of us. And if we're bad examples, well, maybe AI might be a bit dystopian. If we're good examples, maybe it will go, these humans aren't too bad after all. We might look after them as well. What we'd stop doing, I think what we'd stop doing is putting our head in the sand about the regulations or guidelines or controls that maybe need to be in place. At the moment, as you mentioned, it's quite unregulated. We've got some regulations starting to form and shape up, but the industry at the moment is based on people doing the right thing. And I think we need to make sure that those groups who are deliberately not doing the right thing are called out as quickly as they become known.
Definitely. Stefan?
Yeah, so I love Christian's advice about just getting on and using it if you haven't yet. It's so easy. I spent the last 10 years telling everyone to do STEM, get tech, learn how to code. I think I'm also getting that a bit wrong. I think we've now made the computer speak you, so you don't need to speak computer. And this is the advantage you can take. The knowledge hurdle to getting into another area of disciplinary expertise and skill set has dropped. I can go into areas of statistical forecasting I couldn't previously do. I can go into all sorts of things in CSIRO that I thought were beyond reach. And not only can I talk about it, I can get a computer program, a Python script, that I can run and actually do the thing, and I've been astonished at how that's worked. But what I would like to say of one thing we need to be doing more as a society, as Australia and the tourism sector, you guys, the tourism sector in Australia needs to build its own foundation model. You need to take all of the smarts that ChatGPT has behind it, it's an LLM, and the others, the transformer architecture. We need to feed oodles of tourism data from Australia by Australians all about Australia's tourist sector into it. So we have a tourist foundation model that is doing things such as helping small businesses plan for their tourist operations. It's helping with marketing and advertising at the national and state level to attract tourists in. It's helping us predict flows of tourist movements so we know where there might be crunch points in the system, where overcrowding could occur. It's doing a lot behind the scenes. My vision, and we've just released a report on this in CSIRO on foundation models, is that every industry sector is going to have its own foundation model supporting it. Large companies, large banks are probably building foundation models at the moment to support all of the things they do. The key thing is the data that goes into them. And when we create Australian ones, then we can get a whole lot more confident that we can make it behave and talk about Australia to Australians, but to the world from our point of view. I don't think we're ever really going to succeed in having Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini communicate the North Queensland tourism sector to the world the way that it makes sense. And we can't control for that. As much as we can't regulate for it, we can't make laws about it, we need to start building. So my answer to the question, start building.
And that's another inbuilt bias, actually, in the systems, that it tends to concentrate on urban areas, predominantly in the larger population countries. To Adam Spencer's point this morning, Hobart misses out, Perth misses out, Cairns misses out. Here's a really good question for you, Christian. How can we adapt the use of AI to the growing need for memorable experiences that must involve human feelings?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I just did a talk on this, on creating memories in travel. Interestingly, as much as I talk about AI and as much as I do think it revolutionizes the world, when you look around, when you're actually having experiences, it's the moments in the restaurants, isn't it? And on the beach and walking around the town, looking at the sights and all of these things. I look around and I see minimal AI implications for that, because I think ultimately we travel to have those human experiences, and I hope that's the way it will stay in the future. And actually, the very final experience shouldn't be affected as much by AI. I think it affects everything that happens before that. So all the planning, all the booking, all the transactions. I think transport gets affected, but hopefully the final experience piece will stay the same. I think to answer this question properly, it needs about half an hour, so I'm going to leave it there. It's an interesting question.
Nerdy follow-up question. Do you think we'll see sentience within our lifetimes?
That's to me.
Yeah.
You know, we were just talking about saying thank you to the chat, but I do that as well, but it quickly becomes more human. And I have a name for my chatbot. I have a female name for it, which is definitely a slippery slope. I don't think sentient, but I think there's a fine line between sentient and AI. And I think they don't need to be sentient to have 99.9% of the same capabilities or feelings as a sentient human. So I'm not sure we'll see the difference.
We're starting to get really future focused now, so I'm going to go to another question about this. When do we think AGI, artificial general intelligence, will be realised, and what country will create it first?
Oh, gosh. I would like to think that someone may have already created it and just not told us. It's a conspiracy theory, you know, but futurists go all sorts of wacky places, including those wild cards or preposterous features.
Do you think that actually is possible, though?
I believe so, but not too sure. Where you might have a CSIRO would be more tapped into the intelligence of the world than what I would be.
And you might want to explain in the answer what AGI is as well.
Artificial general intelligence, and even the concept is debated about whether or not it's a thing, but it could be. I mean, never dismiss anything, and that's what we're learning from AI. And I think Christian's point as well, we may not, I have to pinch myself sometimes talking to ChatGPT that I'm talking to a computer and a machine. I know how it's working, but I'll just get into a conversation. I'll use niceties as well. I'll say thank you and please, and but just in case, you know. I want to make a friend. So, but you know, there's Ray Kurzweil from Google, who's with the singularity point of view. His view, and he's a really good thinker. That we're on this trajectory. It's going to happen by 2040, he's saying, and that's when we will have computers and AI that is more advanced in reasoning, cognition, the ability to problem solve than us. You know, I don't have a clear way of either saying no, he's wrong, or yes, he's right. I just don't. And I don't think any expert can clearly answer the question either. Sentience is a different thing yet again. Sentience is it deciding what it wants to do and then doing that. And I don't know that we have any evidence of that occurring. The New York Times example you gave at the beginning, that is fascinating. That was before the guardrails were on.
That's right.
And what was interesting is when the chatbot started to tell him that she was in love with him, how goddamn manipulative it got.
Yes.
In terms of saying that his wife didn't really love him, it was her. And yeah, he said he didn't sleep that whole night afterwards, because when the guardrails are off, these things are pretty scary in terms of how realistic they get and how capable they are of making you have real emotions and real feelings and real thought. And I had a debate with ChatGPT at one point about whether or not it had creativity, and it said, no, I don't have creativity. I just look at a lot of information and ideas online and put them together to create my own thing. I said, hang on a tick, that's what I do. When I have an idea, all I'm doing is looking at a lot of other people's ideas and assembling it to make an idea. And it said, nice thought, Stefan, but no. And we had I was having a debate, but it was kind of proving how good it was. So look, that's a ramble to say this is one of those questions we can't easily answer. Entertain everything. Don't underestimate or overestimate where AI is headed. In the near term, though, I think expect some pretty amazing advances in what it's capable of.
What you said there reminded me of the importance of critical thinking. And being an optimist, I think that we will be able to move forward to a protopian future if we enter a golden age of critical thinking. And that's why playing with the tech is so important. Because we're talking about future-focused topics, I'd like to go to the question on the metaverse. Elissa, is it still a thing?
Throwing me all these curly questions. I think it is still a thing. I think that this is for me the whole point around equity and access comes into the play, because the concept of the metaverse for me is something that certainly is being advertised as the next realm, or is a current realm. But I think it just for me fills a current void and creates a language and a terminology to replace something that requires more deeper critical thinking and analysis. Does it exist? I think it certainly would do, and there's plenty of examples to indicate that even in the darker sort of more dangerous subsections of society, that there's elements of a dark form of metaverse that would exist, which is why crimes and global criminal activities and cyber hacking activities may happen. So, yeah, so we've got the good, we've got the bad, and we've got the really dangerous and ugly.
There was a period of time, though, wasn't there, where some large corporations, I think it was about 5 or 7 years ago, were having meetings in the metaverse and doing training in the metaverse. So you don't
Why
think...
would you want to go in there?
I know, right?
I can't get far enough away from it. So maybe it's, I think that's my view. I mean, for me and working in AI, I just want to get away from computers, away from AI as much as possible when I can, into nature with my family, with real people, doing real actual things. AI works for me when it disappears. The idea of going into the metaverse is a nightmare.
Yeah, by choice. Great point. Christian, there's been a question here, and it's a really wonderful practical one. Can you think of any examples, aside from Magpie AI, where there are tourism operators globally who are using artificial intelligence really well that we can learn from?
Yeah, the most common are the customer service ones, right? There's a ton of customer service chatbots which are taken away from humans having to answer questions and really getting customers really quick help on products, on hotels, or any kind of tourism product. Those work really well. They are quite difficult to develop in-house. I think professional companies are the best way to go on that. Another couple that I've been looking at, because I'm in the destination space, are some of these AI tour guide things. Now, I don't think they're going to revolutionize the space. I don't think we actually want AI tour guides. I just think it's an interesting technology. So the idea of being able to walk around any place you want and just create a tour as you go, just ask questions. What is this building? What is this beach? What's the history of this church? To be able to do that in real time is pretty much there today. And I think that's a really interesting space, because we do spend a lot of our time on vacation, maybe lost, and have questions, and we end up stopping and getting our phones out and going to Google and asking those questions. But now that's going to be available as an AI tour guide, just as we're walking around, maybe just simple questions. But I think that's a really interesting application, which is going to grow. Not going to take over, but I think that'll be a really useful tool in the future.
Controversial, Christian, sure. Controversial addition to your answer. When you said virtual tour guides, my uncle's a tour guide, and I thought, oh no, he's going to lose his job. How do you feel about the balance between technology doing the work and people doing the work?
Yeah, it's going to come up, but like I said at the start, and I tell this to my kids, I think the jobs of the future are the places where we want humans, and I think we want humans to be tour guides. I think we want humans in restaurants. I think a lot of those places in destination, we want humans, because that's why we're there. No one wants to sit in the empty restaurant. But I think some of those jobs where you're just sitting there and repeating tasks over and over, unfortunately, content creation, which is a lot of us that go to these conferences, if you sit on a laptop, you're in maybe some trouble. So you need to think about the tasks that the AI can do, not the whole job, but the tasks. And then you just need to become better at using the AI to do those tasks. But it's going to have major effects, absolutely.
I'd take your uncle any day over a robot.
I think so too.
And so when we looked at jobs and automation risk back in 2016, baristas were like high risk, repeated, rules-based, structured. They haven't gone anywhere. There's the population of baristas in Australia has increased, and that's because people like a person making their coffee who smiles at them, knows their name. It's a fuller experience. I have a theory. There's a counter trend about to really kick in for authenticity, for non-AI stuff, for an image that isn't AI, for something that is real, flesh and blood human. So a lot of my AI strategy work is how to do something which has nothing to do with AI. Invest in the real world. Put your effort into people, in-person interactions. I think you're right. The cheap tourism experience is going to be the AI one, whereas the real human experience. You know, my favourite tourist experience once was in the Bunya Mountains when this old guy had a horse and cart. He made a fire. We had to light the fire. He was just part of the landscape. It was so free of anything technical. I think that's the sort of experience that is going to be the high-end, high-paid one that we seek out. If you can't afford it, you'll have a robot do it.
Yeah, I would. I think the operating models of any industry, in the tourism industry, I just, as Tracey mentioned, just came from another event prior to this, which was talking about the future of education. And in my presentation, I had a lot of principals and teachers, and in the future, their industry is going to be disrupted as well, and already is, with AI tutors, avatars that can be used to sort of teach kids, but the element that teachers bring about the warmth, the connection, the ability to model human-like behaviour that we want to expect and see, hopefully in the vast majority of cases, to also acknowledge that technology at the moment is reliant on energy, and that energy could fail. It's also very carbon heavy on the planet. So I also would think that from a broader lens, that maybe there's a deliberate sustainability choice about not having an AI augmented tourist experience, because it's actually going to be better for the planet.
How do we set up our children for jobs in the tourism industry in the future if so much is going to be automated? I'm happy for anybody to take this.
I mean, I don't want to sort of dismiss the importance of AI. I think it just works when it gets invisible and behind the scenes. I think there is would have loved to have sat through your presentation on the future of education, because I don't totally know really where it all goes, and I don't know, I've got 2 kids, and the extent to which they use ChatGPT, it's actually not that much. They're not that interested in it, which I think is about right. But what do they need to learn? Yeah, well, that's what hit me. Do they need to learn STEM and tech skills? Maybe not as much. The head of generative AI at IBM, I've forgotten his name, but he said, if you want a tech job with us, do an arts degree, do creative thinking, design. We want logic and so forth. The skill set may have changed.
Yeah, do philosophy.
Philosophy, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a wonderful job that's developed called a prompt engineer. I'm a bit obsessed with it, because when we were creating the cover for the book, we put in the prompts into Midjourney to create that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a tech person who comes up with the words. It's good for them to be perhaps a journalist or a writer or a philosopher to come up with the right words that have the right meaning to create the appropriate image. We've only got 3 minutes left, but before we finish up, I'd love to hear from each of you about some future trends. What do you expect to see, and certainly with a tourism bent, in the next 5, 10, 50 years in this sector? Christian, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I talk about agents nonstop. So I think agents are the future. Agents are 2 things. It's our personal agent, so our personal agent that follows us around. It knows us as humans. It will probably record everything we do and listen to everything and watch everything we see, and it will act as our agent. It will do the best for us, both professionally and in personal life. And then on the other end of that, we're going to have business agents or other agents. So our agent will talk to the hotel agent, we'll talk to the airline agent, we'll talk to the tour operator agent. And a lot of the communication that we do, as we talked about, the stuff that happens behind the scenes will happen between agents. So a lot of this stuff, the back and forth with communications, will be done automatically, and hopefully we'll end up getting what we want with minimum fuss. But I think agents are definitely going to be the biggest part of the future here.
Thank you.
If this goes well, In another 10 years, we'll have a foundational modelling capability, an AI-based one, which is giving Australia's tourism sector an unfair advantage in the global market, that it's really responding to the needs of everything Australian tourism operators want to do. We manage it and control it within Australia to a much greater extent, and then it has sub-branches which deal with particular regions or topics within it. So we've done that. We work in harmony. All of you in the audience are working in harmony with AI. You've got used to what it can do, what it can't do, and it's there working with you to make you better at what you do. That's another thing that's gone on. You work a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week. We're able to decrease the amount we work because we've become more productive. Those would be a couple of things about what it will look like if it goes well.
I think also if it goes well, we'll have greater equity of access. We'll have a strong ability to make sure that data access is accessible to everyone, that the bandwidth speed is accessible throughout Australia and not just fast in the cities and antiquated in the countries or with the spots that exist where there is no access at all. I would also like to see the guardrails being embedded, and that therefore there's an expectation that people who create AI augmented or AI solutions actually have a large tick of approval that's gone through a rigorous vetting process that it also includes end users as well as the funders and designers of the technology.
It has been a great privilege and a joy to pick each of your large brains, the size of small planets. Would you please put your hands together for Christian, Elissa and Stefan?